In this tutorial, we smash a wall with the rigid body simulation, as you can see over here. Please don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment. Thank you very much. Cheers. First thing you want to do is select the default cube, press S, Shift Z to only scale it on the X-axis and Y-axis, and we've got a nice podium. Then go to your physics properties, add rigid body, and change this to passive, and change this to completely not needed, but we're going to use mesh. Now that you're done with that, we're going to rename this floor. Next thing we do is press Shift A, mesh, create a new cube, numpad 1. I'm going to zoom in over here and pay attention to that dot. We want that dot at the bottom of our mesh. So we're just going to press tab to go into edit mode. We're going to press G to grab. We're going to press Z to lock it to the Z axis, and we're going to press 1. Then we're going to click, and then we're going to press tab to go into object mode. Then we're going to press GZ1. And just like that, that little dot is at the bottom of our mesh on the surface of the floor. And now when we scale, it scales without going into our floor, which is wonderful. So we're going to press S to scale, and then we're going to press Shift X to not scale on the X-axis. And just like that, we've built a beautiful wall. And you can press SX and maybe scale it in, make it thinner if you prefer. And we have a beautiful wall right in front of us. Next thing you want to do is press numpad 3 to be in right orthographic view. Select the annotation pen, and up here where it shows 3D cursor, make sure you select the surface. Now wherever you scribble is where there's going to be finer cuts on your object. And normally you'll have, in the real world, finer cuts wherever your object gets impacted, or the impact point basically, you'll have more. So if you want to impact at the dead center of here, we're going to just scribble here and make sure that there's lots of scribbles right over here for the impact point. And just to show you that this is not me just making this up, we're also going to select one corner here. So you can see, compare this corner to the 3 other corners. There we go. So I'm quite happy with that. I'm going to just click on select box because I don't like using the annotation pen, to be honest. And what you'll need to do is go to edit, preferences, add-ons, and this is, don't have to download anything, this comes default with Blender, but you need to activate it. Make sure your community is turned on top here, and then type in cell fracture and make sure that this is turned on. If this is turned on, you can click on object, make sure you got this cube selected, which we're going to rename wall. Click on object, quick effects, and cell fracture is a new option available. Select that. And now we're going to choose the annotation pen. So it needs to make use of the annotation pen to know where to make the cuts from. We can up the source limit to 200. We're going to make the noise, I don't know, 0.2. Should be interesting. And the recursions is the mathematical calculation. If we want really small bits, let's choose 3. It's probably excessive. It's probably going to make it think way too hard. Then create a new collection. This collection is going to be called wall. And once you've selected all those bits, by the way, you can play around with the source limit, the noise, and the recursions, but really do not mess with wall. Also, with annotation pencil, hold in shift and use own verts as well. Make sure they're both selected. You'll get a slightly better result. And then press OK. And slowly but surely you'll notice that your wall is being built beautifully. And you'll notice that there is very few cuts at the bottom and right hand wall ends of the wall, but where the scribble marks are, that's where all the fine unique little cuts are, as if they were impact points. Now if your computer sucks like mine, hopefully this inspires you, because you're not alone. There are other people out there with computers that take forever to load a basic simulation, where the biggest gap between learning new things is actually just the CPU processor you're using. Okay, cool. So this is cut quite nicely. I'm quite happy with that, and you can see all the fine cuts wherever the scribble marks are. It's looking good. It's looking good, and you can kind of play around with that. But one thing I do want to do is minimize the wall collection, make it its own area. And in the main collection, we're going to hide the wall for now, so we can just see this a little bit better. I'm quite happy with that. And by the way, if you want to select all these individual cuts in one go, hover over the wall collection, right click, select objects, and boom, you just selected everything at once. Click on object, go the way down to rigid body, click on add active. Change this to mesh, which is probably excessive, and make the weight, we'll adjust the weight now. Once you've done that, all you need to do, you can just deselect this if you wanted to and just check if it's working for everything. Well, it looks like not everything chose the mesh. So if you want to make sure everything chooses the mesh, you're going to right click on the wall collection, select objects, and we're going to change this to mesh, and then we're going to right click, copy to selected to all the other objects. So now when we look at all the other objects, they all are mesh. Obviously now when we press spacebar, it explodes, because when you use mesh, it doesn't work that well. So let's go back to frame 1, and we're going to change this back to convex hull, which just happens to work better. Right click, well, first let's make sure we select everything. Right click, select objects, change this to convex hull, right click, copy to selected. And now when we press spacebar, it just falls apart, and this is the effect that you should be getting. So if you've got an explosion, you probably know why. All right, now you probably don't want your wall to fall apart until an object hits it. So the next thing to do is to select your wall collection, right click, select the objects within that wall collection, click on object over here, go all the way down to rigid body, and let's calculate the mass. Click on that, and let's make it air. Funny enough, it's actually gotten heavier. I don't know how that's possible, but for fun, I'm just going to leave this on 1 kg because YOLO. And then click on object, and the next thing we want to do is go to rigid body, and what we want to do is select connect. And what this does is it connects all the rigid body elements together, so it's stuck together. However, this gets messy. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a new collection. We're going to call this collection wall glue, I guess, or you can call it constraints. And I'm just going to select all these objects. I selected the first object, hold in shift, select the bottom object, and as easy as that, I'm just going to drag it into my wall glue collection and minimize that so I don't see it all. Now when we press spacebar, it kind of stays together, which is great. If yours isn't staying together yet, one thing you could play around with, but keep in mind this isn't great. That's probably why it doesn't come. You have to install this. But one thing you could do is you can go to your scene properties, and you'll find rigid body world. You can expand it open, and you can play around with the sub-steps per frame and the solver iteration. And in my view, it's glitchy. 15 worked a little bit better for me, but I'm just going to leave everything as is for now. So I'm quite happy with that. I'm not going to mess with something that seems to be working. Just giving you a heads up, you can play around with that if needs be. Right, now when we press spacebar, the wall stays together and it's looking pretty good. I'm quite happy with that. So the next question you might have is, how do we break this? Well, quite simple. We press Shift A, mesh, and let's get hold of Suzanne. If you didn't know, the monkey head is Blender's mascot and her name is Suzanne. Press G, Z, and what we're going to do is we're going to press G, X, bring her over here. On keyframe 1, press I and choose location, rotation, and scale. Go to keyframe 50. Press GX, bring her here. Press I, location, rotation, and scale. Press numpad 7, and just for fun, I'm just going to rotate this a few times around because why not? Once you've rotated this enough times, I'm going to press I, location, rotation, and scale. And the next thing I want to do is go to the physics properties, click on rigid body, make this active. Make sure you select animation. And for fun, I'm going to use mesh. And I'm going to make the weight 1,000 kilograms. So when I go back to frame 1 and I play the animation now, that head is spinning. Go, Suzanne, you can do it. Right, so that's not quite giving the effect that I want. And maybe it's because the constraints are on the wrong side. Or maybe we need to leave this on convex hull because it works best on that. Let's find out. We press play. Speeding past within seconds. Nope, just smashes it all at once. So what can we do? Alright, so what you need to do is select your wall glue, right click, select that object, which is all these constraints. And with that selected, you need to select your physics properties, and you need to disable collisions, and you need to make sure it's breakable. It's not breaking up because it's not breakable. And the only way this is going to translate across everything, all these different constraints, is to right click on each of these. Right click, copy to select it, right click, copy to select it, right click, copy to select it. And you can make the weight, let's make it 20. It's really going to do nothing when the mass is 1,000 kilograms or 1,000 whatever units, and this is only 20. And that should do it. So now when we go to frame 1, doesn't matter which side our monkey head is. I guess I deleted the monkey head. We can just add it back. Come on, Suzanne, don't give up on us. G, Z, bring it out to about there. G, X, chuck it here. And you know, let's make Suzanne a little bit prettier. You don't really need to do this, but why not? Apply. Here we go. You're looking slick, Suzanne. Shade that smooth. Press I, location, rotation, and scale. Go down here, change to frame 50. Press G, X, bring it down to here. Numpad 7. And for fun, I'm rotating it around a few times. Because why not? There we go. And I'm going to press I, location, rotation, and scale. Numpad 1. And I'm going to the physics properties, rigid body, make sure it's active, make sure it's on animate, or else it will just sink down with gravity. And you can leave this on convex hull or mesh, it doesn't really matter. So we go back to frame 1. The only thing you need to change is this to 1,000 kilograms, so it really has a beautiful impact. And then we press play. As this connects, boom! And just like that, we are in action. Thank you for your time, ladies and gentlemen. Please don't forget to like and subscribe. There goes all those bits because I didn't make enough land mass.